Hi! With this section, we're going to see how hackers can use fake game websites in order to hook you onto their beef panel and then run some commands JavaScript codes in your browser. So we're going to be using beef in an external environment in this section, and I believe you cannot find this information, you cannot find these instructions in any other course. So I was trying to run beef on an external environment in order to show you how it's done, and I came up with this idea to create our Ubuntu server in a cloud environment and then install beef on an external server and run the beef over there. So I believe this is the only documentation, only tutorial, only video that you can find this really beautiful and dangerous attack. So now if you're ready, let's get started.
Hi! Within this section, we're going to discuss how we can run beef outside of network, okay, in an external network. In order to do that, we're going to build a website to ourselves and inject beef injection code, beef hook code inside of that website. Actually, there are two ways to do that. First, you can run beef on your Kali Linux, and you can use your old Apache web server as we did in the previous sections. But you have to use your public IP, your own public IP, and you have to use a lot of router port forwarding rules on the top of that. Maybe you can hide your public IP with using a technology called no IP, and we're going to see that in the following lectures, don't worry about it. But this method is not actually safe. So you will be using your public IP, you will be using your own Kali Linux on computer to host a website. Rather than that, we're going to use an external IP. We're going to use a cloud server in order to build our own website. And you can reach a lot of tutorials regarding to this first method online right now. But even though I searched for this method, I couldn't find any tutorials, so I had to come up with a way to create my own way of doing this. So you cannot find any tutorial right now online teaching how to do this. So this is a very critical section for you. Rather than that, we're going to use a cloud server as I suggested, and I'm going to use an Apache on a Ubuntu Linux server. So this is a different distribution than Kali Linux. This is Ubuntu Linux, and you're going to learn how to install it and run it as well. And we're going to use beef inside of that operating system, and we're going to combine no IP domain systems in order to create our own website and deploy them to the victims. If you had used this method, then your router will have to look like this. Let me show you. Of course, you don't have to open your router administrator account. I'm just showing this as an example. Look at here, I have a lot of port forwarding rules like we did before. I'm just going to delete all of these things because I'm just going to show you the second method that I have mentioned. You cannot find that method online right now, so you're going to learn something very new as a concept. Okay? So we're not going to use our own Apache server, rather we're going to work on this digitalocean.com in order to create an Ubuntu Linux distribution cloud server. I'm going to show you how to do that as well, don't worry. And this DigitalOcean actually asks for money in order to provide some services, and I'm going to take care of this as well. So let me open my Kali Linux, and I will show you that I'm currently working on my NAT network. Okay, if I run ifconfig, you will see I'm connected to the internet through my ETH0, and it doesn't even matter. All I need is an internet connection. I don't need any USB Wi-Fi card. I don't need to get a local IP directly from router. What I need is a game. Why do I need a game? Because I'm going to launch my own game site, okay? So if you search for free game website source code or GitHub source code on Google, okay, like this, free game site website GitHub source code, you will see a lot of options. You're more than welcome to discover one of those and try to use it on your own website. But I'm going to make you a suggestion and I'm going to share you a link for that. Why are we launching a game? So people will need to spend more time on our website if we're going to use a beef attack. If they close this browser, then we will lose our connection. Okay? So I found a game and I copied it on my GitHub. So I'm going to share this link with you. And we're going to use this 2048 game. Maybe you have played this game before on your mobile or on internet. So this is an addictive game. So people will spend more time on this and we will be hooking them on our beef control panel. So hackers actually use these kind of attacks, fake game site attacks. So in order to protect yourself, you need to stay away from the websites that you don't know, that you don't trust. Because we're going to launch this on our own external web server, and if you click on it, you will be hooked on my beef control panel. So this is the website that I was talking about, digitalocean.com. So this gives us opportunity to create our web servers. Actually, this gives us opportunity to deploy any development servers online. So developers use this often. You can create servers, you can try some codes on them, you can run tests on them, you can even create your own website using the technique that I will show you in this section. And again, this is a paid service, but I'm going to share you a link where you can get a $10 or a $25 or even a $100 credit depending on the time, depending on the DigitalOcean's availability, so that you can try this for free. I believe it will ask for your credit card information anyway, but it is safe to use it because I have been using DigitalOcean for years now and I didn't come across any problems. I'm going to share this link and I'm going to share my GitHub link in the next lecture so that you can open it on your own browser and start working together with me. So let's stop here and do that within the next lecture. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to create our own web server within DigitalOcean. So I believe you have copied the link that I have shared with you. So I'm going to open that link and I'm going to sign up with you together to show you the signing up process as well. And as you can see, I have been given $100 credit in here. And in time, this may change due to the availability of DigitalOcean, but it will be enough for you to try this on your own, I believe. So I will give this my name and my email address and I will choose a password in order to sign up. After that, it will send me a confirmation email, I believe. Let me try and see. So I have to go to my email address and confirm this and then come back. So do that and it will take you to this credit card verification page. Even though you have your $100 credit, it will ask you to give this credit card info. Don't worry, I have been using this for a long time and it didn't cause me any problems. So after that, I'm going to pause this and give my credit card information and meet you in the next page. And if you don't have a credit card for some reason, of course you can watch this section and take notes as well. You're more than welcome to do that. So after you do this section, it will take you to a page where you can create your own project. Of course, in time they may change this layout, they may change the visuals on the text, but it will take you to a page where you can create a project for sure. So I'm going to give a name to my project. Let me call this game web server or something. You can try to give this like a test game web server as well, okay? So I'm going to use this project for just trying out DigitalOcean. By the way, this doesn't affect my real project, so I'm just filling out a survey in here, and I can change these options later on, don't worry. So it asks what kind of technologies that I will be using in my project. Right now, I only know I'm going to build a website, so I'm just going to choose PHP maybe, but don't worry, we can change it later on. As I said before, you may even skip it and select nothing at all. Okay, so I don't see any PHP in here. Let me browse for it. Yeah, I see the PHP, and I will say next. And yeah, this is the dashboard that I have been trying to go on. Okay, so this is my dashboard for my current project. You can create a new project by clicking in here, and it will take you through the same process. And in your project, you have to create a droplet, and this droplet will create our web server. And this will create our Ubuntu web server, to be specific. You can choose another distribution of Linux in here as well, like Fedora or Debian, but I'm going to go with the Ubuntu because I have tested it before and I know this works well. Of course, the other ones are working well too, but I choose to do it in Ubuntu. If you are very good at Linux, you can do it with Debian or Fedora as well. If not, just follow me and go with the Ubuntu. Once you choose the Ubuntu, it will ask you a version to move on. So Ubuntu has versions as Kali Linux has versions, okay? We generally prefer to use the latest version, and you can click this arrow to choose the version. For example, right now I'm choosing the latest version with x64-bit, okay? And I suggest you choose this as well, the latest version with 64-bit operating system. And in here, you choose your pricing. The less memory you choose, the less price you will pay. So since I have $100 credit, I can choose any of them, but 1 gigabyte, $5 a month will be enough for me to test this. Okay, we're just going to launch a simple website and we're just going to inject a simple line of code, a beef injection code in it. So after you're done with this section, I suggest you come here and delete this project in order to avoid further billing. And in here, it will ask me to choose a data center region. So this is where our web server is going to be placed. So maybe if you're in Europe, you can choose one in Europe. Maybe if you're in Asia, you can choose Singapore. If you're in States, you can choose New York or San Francisco. I suggest you choose one that is close to you. I'm choosing Amsterdam. And in here we have additional options like IPv6 or private networking. Right now we don't need any of this. And these SSH keys, actually, if you're going to launch a web server and if you're really going to use that web server, maybe you need this SSH key because it gives you a secure login option, but I'm not going to use it because we don't need it because this is a test server. If you hit create, it will create your droplet, and after a certain amount of time it will start creating your web server and it will give you a public IP, an external IP that you can use it to reach your web server. And this will be your static external IP, which won't change. So here is mine. I'm going to use it to reach my web server while I'm trying to log into it or while I'm trying to browse into it. I'm going to show you how to do that within the next lecture. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to see how we can connect to our web server and upload files to make our game website. As you can see, we got an email from DigitalOcean stating our username and the password. Of course, you cannot share these passwords with anyone. I'm just going to delete this droplet after I'm finished with this lecture, so you can just see mine, it doesn't matter. And I'm going into my Kali Linux after I just copied my password, and I'm going to use Kali Linux in order to connect to my DigitalOcean web server. So if I run ifconfig, you will see that I'm using ET80, which is 10.02.15 IP address. So right now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it better, because we're going to run a command for the first time, which is SSH. If you type SSH, then your account name, and mine is root in this case, and then an @ and then your external IP address, which is here. Okay, let me copy this and paste it in here as well. It will try to connect to this server. So it will ask me if I want to go on. I will say yes, and it will ask me for a password. So what is our password? It is given by DigitalOcean in an email. So if I copy this and paste it in here, it will log in to my root account in my web server. So it asked me to change the password. Okay, so let me try to give my current password and let me choose a new password. It doesn't show up on the screen, but it's actually typing. So type something and hit enter. So right now I'm in the Ubuntu machine. So I'm not in the Kali Linux machine in this terminal. What I run here will be run in the Ubuntu, in the Amsterdam, okay? It's not run in my Kali Linux. If I open another terminal, of course it will be run on my Kali Linux, but if I run ifconfig right now, as you can see, I have this external IP address. I don't see 10.02.15 right now. I see my external IP address because this terminal is actually running on Amsterdam. So you can reach external cloud servers by using this SSH thing and giving your login information and logging into your web server. So what do we want to do? We want to install the beef in Ubuntu if it's not installed, and we want to install this 2048 game on our web server in order to have a website. Right now, this Ubuntu doesn't have anything. If you run various beef, it cannot find beef because it isn't installed right now. If you run locate beef, it won't still find it. So we're going to manually install everything in this Ubuntu. So first of all, I'm going to run apt-get update because that's what we did when we first installed Kali Linux as well, remember? So we need to be sure that our current version is updated before we run and install other stuff. And Kali Linux comes pre-installed with all the great tools, but we don't have anything right now in our Ubuntu. So we're going to install the Apache server, we're going to install the beef, we're going to download this 2048 game into our web server as well. So I believe best way to start this is to install the Apache web server. So I'm going to say apt-get install Apache 2, okay? And I will say yes, of course. This will take some additional disk space and it's okay for me. and it will install the Apache web server on our Ubuntu machine. And maybe you now understand why are we using Kali Linux, because we don't have to go over this process every time we install Kali Linux. It comes pre-installed with great tools. So if you run pwd, it will show you you're in root. So let me try to find my all folders and files by going cd ... and then run ls. So we are now in the root folder, like we are in here, okay? So think of this like this. We are inside of our computer. So this is what we see in Ubuntu as well. So it has all the same folder order with Kali Linux. And if I say cd var and if I run ls, you will see we have a folder called w, okay? So let me run into that, and as you can see we have this HTML folder, which is our Apache web server. Right now we have the index.html, and I believe this is default index.html. Later on I'm going to delete it because I'm going to replace it with my own game, but for right now let me check it. So let me copy my IP address from here and browse it to see what do we see, okay? So let me open Firefox and paste this external IP address on my Firefox. Of course you can do it from your host machine or your telephone, mobile phone as well. As you can see, this is the default Apache 2 web server web page. We don't need it here. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to install the 2048 game on my HTML folder so that we can see our game when we go to this external IP. So let me have a clear screen in here. Maybe you remember how to delete a file from a Linux distribution. You have to run ls. If you see the file in here like index.html, all you have to do is just run rm for remove index.html. And if I type ls right now, I won't see anything because I deleted index.html. Right now I have a blank web page. So let me get my game GitHub page, okay? I have shared the link with you. I'm going to manually find it from my GitHub repository, but I believe you already have it, so you need to copy it. So I'm just going to go to my GitHub page. This is my GitHub page, okay? And if I go to the repositories and search for 2048, I can find this game in here. I'm going to copy this into my Ubuntu web server. And I believe you have a clue how to do that on your own, right? We did it before. So I'm going to take all of these folders, all of these files, and copy all of these things into my web server so it will be run on my web server. So when people go to my web page, they will see this game, okay? And we don't have to download this one by one. We can use GitHub repositories, we can use GitHub functionalities in order to do that. So copy the link, and we no longer need this, so close it down. And while you're in the HTML folder, you can run git clone and paste the link in here and hit enter, and it will clone everything in my web page, in my GitHub repository, to your HTML. If you run ls right now, you will see it had copied the 2048 folder in here. So let me cd into that, and as we can see, we have the index.html, reg file, readme, style, and everything in here. So we have to move all of this directly into the HTML folder. So Apache web server won't be able to understand this until we do it so. So I'm going to use mw command, move command, and I'm going to say move contributing.md to var www/html. So this will move this file to the location specified. And as you can see, if I run ls, it won't display this result to me because I don't have contributing MD in this folder anymore. I have it in my HTML folder. So I'm going to do that for every file. I'm going to move every file from here to the HTML folder. So as you can see, I have moved favicon, index. I believe the JS folder is next. So license.txt. Actually, we don't need any license.txt or readme.md, but in order to be safe, I'm just moving everything. So after we are done in here, if everything goes well, when we go to our IP address, we will see the game running on our web server. Okay, so 2 more files to go, readme.md, and finally the style folder, var w.html, and I believe we have nothing left. So let me go back while cd ... and if I run ls, I will see everything in here. So I believe now we are ready to test this. So let me open Firefox and let me try to go to this IP address, and I forgot what was the IP address. Let me run ifconfig to see it. So right now let me copy this IP address from here and open the Firefox and paste it in here and try to go, and as you can see, my game is running on my web server, so I can really play the game right now. Okay, so it's working. You can try this on your phone on any connection too. So make sure that your game is running so that we will be ready to inject a JavaScript code in this website, and that's what we are going to do within the next lecture. Within this lecture, we're going to see how to install Beef on our newly created Ubuntu web server machine. So we have managed to install this 2048 game on our web server, and it's running good right now, but we need one addition. We need to install the Beef on our Ubuntu and get this JavaScript injection URL and embed it on our game so that when a victim lands on our page, they will be hooked to our Beef control panel. In order to do that, of course, I'm going to go to GitHub and search for how to install Beef inside of the Beef's official GitHub repository. In order to find that repository, I'm going to go to Google and say how to install Beef. Okay? Of course, it will take me to the Beef GitHub page. If you click on it, you will see that this has a clear instruction page as well. It shows you how to install Beef on a Ubuntu or a Linux page, and you can use old git clone technique as well. We have used it several times. By now you know how to do that. However, if you read carefully here, it has some prerequisites. So it isn't enough for you to alone just clone this and try to install this, but first you have to install the prerequisites before you clone this into your Ubuntu machine so that it will have a proper installation. So if you look here, we have to install this Ruby development. Okay, this is a programming language, and we have to make sure that our Ubuntu server runs Ruby smoothly. So this comes pre-installed with Kali Linux as well. So we didn't bother with this before, but now we are going to deal with this. So I'm copying this and I'm going to paste it in here and hit enter. When you try to install this Beef on your Ubuntu, if you see any other prerequisites, you have to install them as well. So let me go back, and where was it? I was in my Kali Linux, and of course it was in Firefox. And I believe we are done with the prerequisites right now. So all I have to do is just go to a folder and run this git clone command in order to download everything related to the beef project. So let me go back to my machine in here. I'm in the Ubuntu machine again. I'm not in a regular terminal right now. And I'm going to another folder because I don't want to clone this into my web server, but rather I'm going to do it in my opt folder or in another folder, but you don't have to do it on your HTML folder because it may distort your web server. So let me create a folder here called beef, and I'm going to save everything inside of that folder. So if I run ls right now, I will see the beef and I will cd into it, and I'm going to run git clone command in this very folder. So git clone github beef project beef. It will copy everything related to the beef into this folder. If you run ls right now, you will see beef, cd into it, and if you run ls, you will see a lot of folders and files. So you haven't used beef in this way before, so let me show you how to run this. First, we have to install it. As you can see, there are instructions here as well. So it says that run the install file, then start beef. So first we have to say /install, and of course I will say yes, and it will start to install the beef for us in our Apache server. If it asks for anything, all you have to do is just say yes. And it may take a while, so feel free to pause the video and come back after it's done. So this is how you install beef in a Ubuntu server. And after it's done, we will have the opportunity to start the beef and get the sample injection code, get the sample JavaScript injection URL, and embed this on our website, game website, so everyone landing on our page will be hooked to our beef. And we can control that inside of our beef control panel in our Ubuntu server. So I believe this will take a while, and I'm going to stop here and continue within the next lecture after this installation process is done. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to see how to run beef in an external environment. So we have already installed beef on our Ubuntu server, but we need to change some settings before we go on and run the beef. And in order to do that, we have to change something called configure.yaml. If you run ls, you will see this configuration file in here under beef folder. So we have to edit this file, and this is basically a text file, so I'm going to use leafpad for editing this file, and apparently leafpad isn't available on the Ubuntu machine, so I can install this, but I don't want to deal with that, so I'm going to use nano in order to achieve this. So I will say nano config.yaml, and it opened config file for me. So let me browse a little bit to see what can I change. As you can see, my default user and password is beef, and I'm going to change it, because when I run beef on an external environment, beef will just say you cannot use the default username and password. So I changed the username and the password. So let me go down a little bit to see the other configurations as well. Since beef is configured to run on the local host at default, we have to change it. Okay, as you can see, there are a lot of options, and we need to find one starting with database, and here it is. As you can see, the database host has the value of localhost by default. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to paste my IP, my server IP in this line. So let me copy it from my email here. Okay, say copy and come back to my Kali Linux and paste the value in here. So the port, the name, the user, and everything can stay the same. Of course, you can change them as well, but I'm going to leave that as it is. So if I scroll down a little bit, then I will come to the end of the file where I see the Metasploit framework. By default, this is false, and I'm going to change it to be true in order to use the Metasploit extensions as well. In fact, in this section, I'm not going to use any Metasploit commands, but if you want to use later on, you will have to change it to true. So I believe right now we are okay. Let me scroll up a little bit to see if I can change something else, but I believe this is okay. In order to save the changes, I'm going to hit Ctrl O on my keyboard and hit enter to say okay, overwrite this file, and then hit Ctrl X to get out of this nano. Right now we are done with this configuration file, but then I'm going to go into the extensions folder to find the Metasploit framework configuration as well. So in here we have different folders. I'm going into the Metasploit, and then I'm going to nano into this config.yaml one more time. So this is completely different configuration file than before. This only concerns the Metasploit extensions, so we need to change this as well. In the first part, we have the host as localhost one more time. So let me try and reach here, okay, to the host part. For a reason I cannot see it, and yeah, here it is, the host part. As you can see, it is 127.0.0.1, which is our local host. So let me delete this and paste the value that I have copied before. So it has to be like this. So this one, callback host, again delete this and paste the value of host one more time. After doing this, let me scroll down a little bit and see if anything is wrong with this path. And as you can see, this has the path to the Metasploit framework for different Linux distributions. And in Kali we have Metasploit in here, but in custom we do not have that. So I'm going to write this as Kali Linux. Okay, I'm going to say user share Metasploit framework. In fact, I don't even have Metasploit framework in this machine. If you want to use Metasploit framework with Beef, you have to install this, but I'm not going to do this very complicated way. I'm going to make it simple. So I'm just showing you the further configurations if you want to dig deep into the Beef in an external environment later on. So Ctrl O and Ctrl X to get out of this as well. Right now our configuration is ready. Now I have to run Beef, okay? And I cannot run this in Metasploit. Let me cd ... and go into Beef and see the Beef in here. When I run ls, as you can see, I have Beef in here. If I say /beef, it will run the Beef for me. Now it starts to run, and after it's done, it will share me the sample links. And I need those sample links to run the Beef and also to hook the victims as well. As you can see, this is now running in the Ubuntu machine, and it has the IP address of Ubuntu in the sample links as well. So we have the hook URL and we have the UI URL as well. We're going to use this hook URL later on. Right now I just want to open the control panel. So right click on this link and say open link. And here we have the beef running on our server, as you can see. So the username is the one that you have changed, okay? It's not beef anymore. And once I give my username and password, here it is. Here I see the control panel of beef running on my Ubuntu machine. So I'm going to stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to see how to use this hook URL in order to run JavaScript code on the victim browser. Hi, within this lecture we're going to see how we can add the hook injection code into our game website. So we have beef running on this Ubuntu machine. So I'm going to use this hook URL to copy this into my index.html, right? So I need to access to my index.html in the same server. So let me copy this first, okay? Let me select this, right click it and say copy. And then I'm going to open a new terminal in here. You can open a new tab or a new terminal, it really doesn't matter. And let me zoom in a little bit so we can see it better. Now I'm going to open another SSH into my Ubuntu server because I don't want to stop the beef from going on. So I'm going to say root SSH root at, and of course I have to paste this IP in here as well. So this is 168.994153. And the password, I believe I have changed the password. Yeah, it's correct. So let me try to find my Apache server web root. Remember, it's in var whtml. And if I run ls right now, I will see index.html. So I'm going to edit this index.html to paste this URL inside of it. In order to do that, we generally use some HTML editing IDEs or script editors like Genie, but this time I'm just going to use Nano because we don't have any of those. If you say nano index.html, it will open the content of index.html for you. I'm not going to change any content from this file, but rather I'm just going to add something. And in order to do that, I'm just going to scroll down to the end of this file, and you will see some lines starting with script source. So we're going to add our JavaScript code in here as well. As you can see, we already have JavaScript in here. And we're going to add our malicious JavaScript here as well. So I believe we can do the same. We can create the same line just by copying it from below. So script source is now equal to, and open a double quotation mark in here, and after that you have to paste the link that you have copied, okay, and then close this and then say /script as they did in below. Okay, you don't have to know HTML in order to copy this pattern. So I believe we have copied it before, but let me make this one more time and paste it in here, and we are ready to go. So this will run this JavaScript code in my web page as well. So Ctrl O, enter Ctrl X. And now I'm ready to test this. We installed everything on our Ubuntu machine, we installed our game, we installed our beef, and they are all running. Now we don't need to do anything more before we test this. So let me close this down and let me make sure my beef is running in here. Okay, so let me minimize this and let me just open my Firefox so I have my beef control in here. Okay, and I'm going to try this from my host computer. So this is running on a different IP. This is running on my home IP actually, and the server is running on Amsterdam. So if I try to go to my IP address, if this is hooked, then it's working fine. So it is 41 and 53. So I can reach it from here and I can play the game as well. But do we get hooked? And as you can see, I'm hooked to here. So if you click on this, then you can reach the comment section and you know how to run these comments. Let me try this with alert and let me just say I hack you and execute. Let me see if we got this message from my host computer. Here we are, we have this message. So right now this is working very good. But we need some other features as well. Right now we don't have any domain address, we only have an IP address, right? So we cannot send people our IP address and wait them to trust this. So they don't trust the sole IP addresses. We have to have a legit domain address. And we're going to see how to do that within the next lecture. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to see how to get a domain name for our game website, and we're going to see a concept called no IP. So right now we have a working website in here, but it can only be reached through the IP address, and this doesn't give any credibility to us. Or actually, you can go to godaddy.com or any other domain services and buy a domain to yourself and connect them to your hosting account. And if you search for DigitalOcean domain connection to the hosting or something like that, you will get tons of tutorials in here, as you can see. But you have to pay for that. Okay, you have to get a domain name for like a $10 per year. And since we are doing this only for test purposes, we don't need it. I don't want to waste time on this. But I'm going to show you a free way to do that with something called noip.com. And noip doesn't only provide us with domain names, but also it has other features as well. If you go to noip.com, you will see this is a DNS service. It is generally used by developers, and it is generally used in order to overcome static and dynamic IP problems. So if you're a user on your own home, if you reset your router, or if your internet provider resets your router, your IP address will change. So if you're trying to run an Apache server or a web server on your machine, then your IP address will change and nobody will be able to reach your IP address. And remember the backdoors, we would have to direct the connection from the victim machine to our IP address. And if it changes, then we cannot get that connection. So we have these issues when we use a dynamic IP address. And this no IP is actually to overcome this problem. So it gives you a tool, it gives you a software that you install on your machine, and when your IP changes, this software tells no IP that you were redirecting this connection to this IP address. Now this IP address is changed to the new IP address. So now you have to redirect all connections to this new IP address. So you would have a perfect static IP. Of course, you can obtain a static IP by calling your internet provider and paying some extra money as well. But right now, we're not going to deal with any of those problems because we already have a static IP from DigitalOcean. But rather, we are going to use this noip.com in order to obtain a free DNS, free domain to our website. All you have to do is sign up from here, and it is completely free and it is very easy to sign up. you have to give your email address and choose a password and then just log in. After you log in, it will take you to a web page, it will take you to a dashboard where you can do the settings, where you can adjust the options. Right now I don't have any active, as you can see. And I'm going to add one. So I'm going to choose a host name first, and I'm going to choose a subdomain from here. As you can see, you have a lot of options and they are completely free. So you can choose one of those domain names here, and then in the host name you can choose something like free2048game.com. okay, so let me try with this one, free2048.ddns.net. so let me try to add this. It says that this is already taken. I believe I have taken it before. So free2048game.ddns.net is now okay. So if you click on this dynamic DNS, there are still options in here that you need to configure. So here we see our domain server. If we were to use this for static and dynamic IP resolution thing, then I would have to go to this device configuration in the below and do the settings in here. Okay, you would have to click this next step and you would have to give your router information and other information like public IP as well. But we're not using no IP for this purpose, as I already explained. We just want to get a free domain server for our hosting, and in order to achieve this, click on here and it will give you a default IP address, and this will be your public IP address. So I'm pixelating it. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to choose my own Ubuntu server IP address, copy it and delete this and paste it in here. And then I will say update hostname. And actually that's it. Right now, if somebody tries to go free2048game.ddns.net, they will be directed to my hosting. However, bear in mind that this can take like 1 hour or 2 hours to be effective. So even if I try to go to this domain name right now, I believe it won't direct me to my hosting because it's not in effect right now. So let me try it. Yep, this is not working right now. This is not working yet, but it will in an hour, and I will stop this lecture and I will show you that this is working within the next lecture. Then we will test to see if every feature is working in a way that we want. Hi, within this lecture we're going to test our final product to see if everything is working well. And I have a completely different computer in here. I connected to my other MacBook to test if it's working on completely different network. Okay, so if I go to free2048game.ddns.net, it works. As you can see, no IP works right now. It took me an hour to get this, and I can play the game in here. But when I do that, while I do that, I'm hooked to the beef on Ubuntu machine. If I go back to my Ubuntu machine, actually it is in my Kali Linux, but the beef is running on Ubuntu. So right now this is hooked, and I can try to create an alert dialog in here to test this. I will say I hack you and execute it. And let me go back to my other machine and see. As you can see, I got the message in here. So this is working in a way that we want. And I'm going to test this on my mobile phone as well, because if the mobile phone's browser uses JavaScript, runs JavaScript, this should work in that browser as well. So I connected my phone to my computer in order for you to see Of course, you don't need to do that. You can just try with your own phone. So I'm going to go to free 2048 game here. Free 2048 game.ddns.net and see if I got hooked on my Ubuntu machine. So I can play the game in my phone as well. And this is an iPhone, by the way. So let me go to my Ubuntu, let me go to my Kali, and as you can see, it's already hooked in here. I'm pixelating the IP numbers because it displays my public IP since they are on a different network. So let me try to run this alert dialog again. And I will say I hack you and I will execute it. And if I go back to my phone, in here, you will see I got the message. So right now, maybe all of the commands won't work properly because you're running this inside of a Ubuntu and you don't have appropriate extensions. For example, you don't have Metasploit in your Ubuntu. If you want to use Metasploit commands, you have to install Metasploit framework in Ubuntu as well. So I hope you enjoyed this section. Let me stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to discuss how we can make ourselves safe. Hi! Within this lecture we're going to discuss how to stay safe against these beef attacks on external networks. So we have seen that hackers can easily manipulate websites into hooking us and running commands on our browsers. So best way to stay away from this is to stay away from the websites that we don't trust, that we don't know. So if some fishy guy sends you a website stating that, hello, come and play my game, then don't do it. Even if you do it, you can see the source code. Remember, you have to go to develop and say show source code. Of course, this is different on Firefox and other browsers as well, but in all browsers you can see the source code, HTML source code, okay? If you scroll down, you will see this has this hook.js thing. Of course, they can even change the name of this like hook.js, but you can click on these files to see the content of them as well. So if you don't want to deal with this kind of stuff, I believe the best way to avoid this problem, best way to stay safe, is to stay away from these unknown, untrusted websites. I would suggest go into this hook.js file and try to get yourself familiarized with this hook.js content. So later on, if you see something like this, you would know that someone is trying to hook you into the beef framework. But if you don't know JavaScript or if you don't know any programming at all, then this is fine as well. Maybe you can try to understand the content of it after you finish this course, because we're going to learn how to write codes in Python in the following sections. Then it would make much more sense to you when you finish this course. And of course, remember, you can change the settings of your browser not to run JavaScript at any time, but this will distort your view, this will distort the performance of the websites. You cannot use the websites properly, you cannot see the websites properly if you do that. So most of the people do not prefer this way. So if you're not going to do that, then just don't go into the untrusted websites. And again, if you're browsing dark web, this is the reason why you should turn off JavaScript other than HTTPS sites. So we're going to stop here right now, and within the next section, we're going to discuss what to do after we hack in a system. Right now, you don't know what to do even if you have a meter-peter session with your target, and we're going to learn that in the following section.